Good morning.
Morning, Richard.
Good morning.
Reminder to everybody, we are recording. If you don't want to be on camera, you can shut your camera off. Uh, Let me just get the site up and we'll start. Hmm. How is everybody?
We're
Good.
well.
Good.
Better that you see in my face, right? Yeah, right. I don't think everybody's awake.
Oh, yeah.
I see everybody but your face, Rich.
Really? Oh, yeah. About
I
now.
don't know.
I see my face.
I don't know.
You don't see me, Craig? I'm up here.
Oh, I got no clue.
I see him.
Yeah, it's you, Craig. You're a vampire. All right, so we finished a guest engagement yesterday, and now we're on the food page. There's going to come times when there's certain phrases, it still happens to me constantly, certain phrases, certain food items, lots of things that I don't know. Somewhere along the line, I will probably buy all of the employees a food lover's companion. It's a wonderful book, has every type of food and every cooking term and anything related to food in the world in it. I think it's overkill right now. That'll be part of our ongoing education. I'll also buy all you guys a Windows on the World wine course that we will work on together, but not during opening. It's just too much information. But we'll study together going forward. I've been through both of those several times. I can't do it enough. Too much information to memorize. Uh, but anytime we put something on the menu, the chef will explain it. Special truffles he's offering, whatever it is. If you see something you don't know, please ask. Please make sure you know what all the products are on the menu.
Richard, one of the things I do also, if anything's new, I create a handout or a packet.
You just faded away. Your microphone just faded out.
I was just saying that every time
Can't
something's
hear you.
new.
Can't hear you.
Okay, hold on. How about now?
You're not full.
I'll come back. Never mind.
Sorry. Here are my 3 reasons many people drive me to desire for food education. It's our career. It's how we make a living. Is that your finger, Thomas? I hope. Uh, uh, in our personal lives, it affects us too. I mean, what we learn at work can only better the way we eat personally, how we take care of our families, right? I love to cook. My last line is, my love for cooking comes from my love of eating. I always say, nobody can cook for yourself like yourself. So if you do like to cook, you can always make it exactly the way you like it. And it's very hard for somebody else to nail that. Did you think you fixed your mic, Chris? He looks deep in thought. All right. In this day and age, I truly believe the hardest job for a chef is sourcing great food. We've been at beef tastings 7 or 8 months now. And, still looking at stuff. It's very hard to find great, consistent food in the marketplace now. It's the biggest challenge a chef faces. I tell people now, if you want to be a great chef, learn how to source great food and then don't mess it up. If you buy wonderful food, you don't have to do that much to it. Seasonality is going to be important. It always is, especially when you look at our side offerings for vegetables Those side offerings, some things will be staple. Some of the starches for sure will be staple items year round, but you're going to see probably at least 50 to 60% of side items change 4 times a year. Not because we like to change side items, not because we don't like them anymore, but the world of produce is definitely seasonal. There's also, there's other types of seasons in food. I like to use soft shell crabs as an example, right? Everybody talks about soft shell crab season. In reality, you can get soft shell crabs year round. That style crab sheds its shell when a water temperature that it lives in its natural environment reaches a certain temperature. They shed their hard shell, and there's a season where they just have this new soft shell. But truthfully, if you're farming soft shell crabs, you just turn the tank up to the right temperature any time of year, and they'll shed their shells. People are used to soft shell crab season. So even though you could provide them year round, they only really move when they're in season. So there's all types of seasons, and we're going to change with them because we should be delivering the best products that are available at the time in the market. I'm going to get up 1 second, guys, and close my door because people are talking in the other room. Next topic is food allergies. We can't kill anybody. That's our number one goal. Keep our guests alive. You must, it's not optional. You must check with all your guests before you take orders and make sure you're aware of anyone with a food allergy. When you identify someone with a food allergy, in this dining room, you can walk right over to the chef stage. Make sure the chef and the sous chefs or the culinary attendants, everyone knows table 23 has a peanut allergy on it. I can't tell you. It's so important. Along with the health, a fellow I grew up 2 years ago, Kevin Morrissey, New York City, 58 years old, choked to death in a steakhouse 2 years ago. New York City cop. Out with friends, having a steak dinner. I have bought machines for, the Heimlich maneuver is great, but they actually make great machinery now. It's almost like a suction cup that goes over the face and will free up your windpipe. We have to do everything in the world to protect our guests. Okay? Horrible to have a guest get sick or God forbid die from an experience in a restaurant. It happens. It happens way more than people think. So it's not going to happen to us, right? Because we're going to take care of our guests. I talked a little yesterday, we're half a manufacturing plant. Cleanliness, we can never have a single area or anything in this restaurant dirty or not sanitary. We can't have a smudge on a wall. We will paint every day. Someone during the day will go around the restaurant and touch up any marks on any walls. Every day. To me, it's not acceptable to go into a restaurant and there's chair marks on a wall or skid marks from people's feet on walls. And it's insanity to me that people don't have that kind of pride in their establishment to make sure it's pristine. At the Sterling Club, my bartender was Brenda Shook. In her side work, she painted every day. She touched up the walls in the pool bar. It was part of her opening side work. It'll probably be our porter, our night porter, or someone that does it for us. But someone will have a touch-up can and we'll touch up our walls every day. I mean, that's the level of freshness, cleanliness, and the way we're going to hold ourselves out to the world. Just like we talked about our personal hygiene and our personal presentation, it will be the same for the restaurant. So, allergies and things, it just goes on and goes in a little more depth of what we just said. There's other types of basic food knowledge that Chris and Chef Thomas will take you through during training. there's certain basic principles like, the 5 mother sauces. There's only 5 sauces that all the chefs build all the other sauces out of them. We should know them. Customers ask questions. Customers love an educational portion of a dining experience. At one point in the Four Seasons, we were able to source these certain type of fish. I forgot what it was, but if you ordered it, we put a little QR code that came with the shipment of that fish, and you hit it with your phone, and it was truly line caught fish, one fish at a time, and you could watch the guy catching the fish you were about to eat. People were nuts for that. We couldn't get enough of it. The company could never keep up with the demand, and it finally went away. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through the mother sources. That'll be through training. But just so you guys know, like, these are just basic foundations of food knowledge that if you work in restaurants, you should have. We need to understand the difference. Somebody explain the difference from a vegan to a vegetarian. Stop, please.
Vegetarian. Oh, sorry. Someone else speaking.
Oh, I said, don't read it.
I was just gonna
Oh.
say that vegetarians will usually eat like milk or cheese or butter or things like that, but vegans usually none of the above at all.
Nothing can come from an animal product if you're vegan. Oh, I'm sorry, boss is there. Hey, Cameron.
So very quick, Richard, what are the in and out orders for the Ford?
They haven't been delivered yet.
Oh, do you know when we're going to get it?
I'll have to look it up. I'm in a training session right now. Okay.
So call me after the training.
Yeah, it's over at 1:30. So, yeah, vegans, you can't have anything, right? So a vegetarian, you can probably put butter on something they're not going to mind, right? Because they're not killing an animal to get the butter. But a vegan won't even have butter. If the product comes from an animal, it's off limits. Did I say that correctly, Chris? Right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Also, vegan is a lifestyle, where vegetarian is just a dietary restriction, right? Vegans don't wear clothes or any products in their homes, anything that's an animal byproduct, whether alive or dead, they don't touch. There's other, so many other. I like flexitarian. A person who's primarily a vegetarian diet, but can eat fish and bends the rules. It's called a flexitarian. I never heard that one. Like, did some research on it. There's lots of other dietary restrictions. Gluten-free is very popular today. I raised my son gluten-free for 20 years. When he was little, I must have went to 5 or 6 stores every time I had to go shopping because I could buy one item at Trader Joe's and one item, at wholesale. It's become much more mainstream now. Most supermarkets have a gluten-free section in dry goods, a gluten-free section in the frozen section. We have it easy. 80% of a steakhouse menu is gluten-free. So that's a diet that, steakhouses are very friendly for gluten-free diets. But you guys need to definitely study this section of the page and understand these lactose-free diets, kosher diets. We can't do kosher, right? We're not set up to do kosher. You need separate utensils, separate plateware. You need a rabbi, right? We can't do kosher. I used to do kosher catering. It's not easy.
What about halal? Is any of the meat halal friendly?
I don't think so, but we'd have to check. But I truthfully, we're still running 5 steakhouses. I've never been asked that, from a customer.
It was just huge in Dallas. Like I would say, like 15% of our clients asked for halal.
Yeah. And definitely when you work in different parts of the country, you get different requests. We were in Dallas for 8 years, but it wasn't a steakhouse, so we didn't face that in Dallas. But anyway, please understand and respect all these different diets that are out there. Sustainable seafood. To me, sustainable is most of the time just another marketing term to make people feel better about what they're eating. I don't know. So somebody want to explain what they think sustainable means? And I'm going to go to a picture so you can't read. Come on, guys.
I mean,
you got to chime in
I'll
here.
do it. I'll do it because I got a little background from Rick Moonen, of course. Sustainable is responsible catching,
Hold on, before you go.
bycatch.
Before you go.
Uh,
Wait, before you go. Chris is referencing a great chef, the one that Chef Thomas told was his mentor. Rick is the champion of sustainable seafood in the United States, and he works internationally on it as well. So he's a hero for me. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so sustainable seafood is something that has regards to bycatch, the bottom of the ocean, pulling out the right amount of harvest, not overfishing, and not creating anything into an extinct or an endangered category.
Right. And it also reaches out to respect the environment that you're farming in, whether it's in the ocean or on land farms, anywhere where food is raised. The idea of sustainability goes past the product and sustains its natural environment as well. It is a great thing to do. That's what responsible food purveyors do, right? Or food growers or farmers. They refer to fish hatcheries as farmers, right? Not just growing wheat and grain and things like that. But whenever possible, we like to source environmentally friendly products from people that try to run sustainable farming systems. And this section goes on to talk about, I use seafood a lot in this area because look at all these different ways that you can get fish. Some are better than others. Farming fish, some people say, oh, I don't want farmed fish. Well, a responsible farm produces a great product. And if they're located and they built the farm on a waterway that, the water's constantly moving and it doesn't sit, there's no contaminants that are building up. People, it's like, you can't farm fish in a pond. You wouldn't want to eat that fish, But, an example of people that have not sustainable environments, outside of the United States and the rest of the world, caviar comes from a sturgeon fish. There's a couple of different types of sturgeons. And that sturgeon has to live in the Caspian Sea, which is between Russia and Iran. That is the only thing around the world that can be called caviar. The United States, we're pretty easy on marketing. Sometimes you'll see American sturgeon caviar. The rest of the world will not acknowledge it. It'll be American fish roe is what the rest of the world calls it. But I will tell you right now, in the 1980s, I sold Iranian caviar for a living as I went to culinary school. Today, you could not force feed me an ounce of Russian or Iranian caviar. The Caspian Sea has become so polluted that it's probably one of the worst things you can do for your health is eat Russian or Iranian caviar now. That's the perfect example of a non-sustainable production of anything. They literally destroyed the world's source for caviar. And luckily, there have been farming sturgeons here in America and around the world, and there's some pretty incredible other fish roes, which are in the U.S. we call caviar, that are available. But I don't know, Chris, I don't know of anyone that buys Russian caviar anymore. I wouldn't.
No, I mean, I think it's mostly Chinese now and some domestic for the most part.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
even
a French place, but
I go to Petrosian's in New York. I love caviar because I sold it for a living. I acquired a real taste for it. And, most of the stuff I'm getting at Petrosian's in New York now are all American caviars from the West Coast mostly. But it's a shame because my boss, when my wife and I got married, he did our cocktail reception and he gave me 2 kilos of Russian beluga caviar as a wedding present, and everybody went nuts at my wedding. And you can't do that kind of thing anymore. It's terrible. But anyway, we like responsible food producers. Organic, the most overused marketing term in the food world. There's all levels of organic. There's USDA organic. There's certified organic. These contents have to be 95. Nothing's 100% organic. That's the top, right? USDA organic. That's only 95% of the product in anything has to be organic. The other 5% could be as polluted as you want. Pesticides, dyes, whatever they want to do. Then you get to certified organic. It's the only label you see that could be 100%. It's got to be certified organic. Then there's made with organic, 70% organic. I think they got some lower ones too. The problem with the term organic, if you slap it on a label of your product and you get caught, the fine's $11,000. If you're Del Monte Foods and you have $5 billion a year in organic canned food sale and you get caught, it costs them $11,000. If you're Vanessa growing organic corn in Northern California and she only sells $10,000 a year of corn and she calls it organic and it's certified organic, it's not. Vanessa has to pay $11,000, the same as the $5 billion a year. So the big companies don't really care. They'll slap labels on anything because economically, it doesn't hurt them. To a multi-billion-dollar company, an $11,000 fine is, it's not even the cost of doing business. It doesn't even show up on their financial statement. So do I say never buy organic? No, there's certain things I buy organic and certain things I don't. I think we might have touched on it. Thick-skinned fruits or vegetables, organic is a waste of money. The pesticides that come up through the roots from contaminated soil, every bed in America has been contaminated. W.R. Grace was the richest man in the world for, I think, 4 decades. In the middle of his career, what he's most famously known for is, until today, he lost the biggest class action suit in the history of the United States. And he paid the suit. And after he paid it out, he was still the richest man in the world. And he got sued because one of the companies he owns invented DDTs, which was a pesticide that gave more people cancer than smoking. He paid a lot of money out. He was still the richest man in the world when he was done. So, money, we like to try, especially with our children and stuff, is to protect them and give them the greatest things. But I just think you should be aware. I'm not telling you to say, oh, organic doesn't mean anything. But, it's not something I hang my hat on. It's not something I put on menus. It's, it's such a gray area. It truly is today a marketing term. I mean, when you can go in Burger King and they're considering themselves a farm-to-table restaurant now, it's out of hand. It's just getting crazy. And so many of these terms have just become marketing terms. Who else is on this call? Let's see. Tamara, what's foie gras?
I don't know.
Okay, good answer. So foie gras is duck liver.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Okay. It is a delicacy. It is delicious. It's a very controversial food. In the state of California, it is illegal to sell foie gras. We will be selling foie gras. The reason, when we say only from reputable vendors, there might even be a video on this site about foie gras. There are certain, years ago, they would nail, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but they would nail a duck or a goose's feet to like a piece of wood so they couldn't move. They put a funnel in their mouth, force feed it every day until that liver was bulging out of them, and then they would slaughter the duck and harvest the liver. It was very cruel. And that's where everything started. There are producers today that are much more responsible and humane to the animals. But like any other, we're a steakhouse. Cattle is raised to be slaughtered as a food supply. These ducks, they're raised for a food supply. But you want it to be humanely. We're going to have an autism program in the day. It's a long story. I won't tell it now, but there's a woman named Kemble Graydon. She has autism. She redefined how cattle is slaughtered to make it in a much more humane way. And her research in the cattle business led to leaps and bounds of how to help people with autism use self-regulations and calm themselves down, all through her research on cattle. We will serve foie gras. You can assure your customer if we're serving foie gras, it is coming from a responsible producer that treats these animals humanely and not nailing their feet to boards. That's what you need to know. I would never buy foie gras from an unreputable dealer, no matter how cheap it was. Okay? GMO. Is it good or bad? All right, who else is on this call? Trina, tell us about GMOs.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I would assume that it's no good only because everywhere you go, it says non-GMO. So I would assume GMO is bad.
Yeah, can be, So GMO, it's basically a genetically modified organism. I have a Maltese. I have a long-haired Chihuahua. I have a Scotty. They're all GMOs. That's a good GMO. They're great dogs. They're crossbred, right? That's what GMO really means. They cross-pollinate flowers. They cross-pollinate fruits. In the food business, they genetically modify. Like people love. What's the tomato I'm thinking of, Chris? Not hot house tomatoes.
Heirloom?
Sorry? Heirlooms.
Heirloom?
People go crazy for heirloom tomatoes. They're GMOs. There's no such thing as a natural heirloom tomato. Man created heirloom tomatoes. In the food processing world, Trina, I have a cousin that just started a chocolate company. And it's dark chocolate. It only has 2 ingredients. It's all natural. It's got sugar cane in it. Sugar cane comes from Earth, Mother Nature. The starches or the carbohydrates in fruits are called single chain carbohydrates. They come from nature. We come from nature. Your body knows how to handle them. Denise has diabetes. I don't know if I should talk about that, but she does. She checked her blood sugar last night. It was a little low. She needed sugar. She ate a banana. She's a diabetic. You're not supposed to have sweets. You do have to get sweets. You got to get the right sweets, right? Because single chain carbohydrates, processed flour is man-made. GMOs. Every time you eat a bread, 90% of the time you're eating GMOs. Because when they process flour, they create what's called a multi-chain carbohydrate. That's where diabetes comes from. Your body doesn't know how to handle it. It starts whacking out your blood sugar. That's why when people say processed foods aren't good for you, that's why. Processed foods are loaded with multi-chain carbohydrates. This sounds like a lot of information for people that are serving people in a restaurant. People are going to ask you, do you use any GMOs in your dishes? Yeah. but all GMOs aren't bad because I love me some heirloom tomatoes, and they're not harmful, right? So it's a tough term, you know. My answer would be, I don't know what you think GMOs are. For us, the flour in the bread is, could be considered that, but you've been eating that since you're a kid and you know what that is. You know what I mean? But I think the GMOs that everybody's so scared of are genetically modified oils used for cooking. There's some really dangerous ones. So I don't know, Chris, how do you handle that in the dining room? Because it's a question people ask. That's a real question. And that's why we all need to really understand it. Uh, yeah, corn, half the corn on the market's a GMO. All because they can produce large amounts of crop by cross-pollinating these seeds, right? Chris, words of wisdom here. Oh, here, Chris. Another big thing with GMOs, hormone treatments in cattle. Make them grow bigger, faster, get them to slaughter quicker, right? You ever notice that kids look like they're getting bigger and stronger now? It's not a coincidence. They're getting growth hormones through the food chains, through the meats they eat. They are getting bigger. They are getting stronger. Our kids are genetically modified. It's
Look at some of
inevitable.
the chicken breasts. Look at some of the chicken breasts that you buy in some of these stores. You
Yeah.
know, they're the size of a ribeye for one chicken breast.
Yeah. Yeah. And our kids are eating it. And unfortunately, we can't avoid it. We're not bad parents, but it's unavoidable in our food chain. Uh, for our customers that are all concerned about all this, we all have a steak on the menu. I call it our tree hugger steak. It's a Piedmontese steak. The DNA was developed in Italy. The cattle have a super low fat content. They graze all the way through. Usually, all cattle graze, and at a certain point in their life, the cattleman or the rancher stop grazing them and they start giving them a corn feed or corn and barley. That's called the finish, when they change up the feed from grazing. The reason they change, not that it's bad for the cattle to graze all the way through, but there's certain types of grains and things that can feed cattle that can make the flavor of the beef bolder and richer. That's why you use different finishes when you raise cattle. Tree huggers want everything organic. So 100% grass-fed beef means that cattle naturally just grazed till the day it was born, till the day it was brought to slaughter. So that's 100% what's meant by 100% grass-fed. There was no point in the cattle's life they were taken out of the field and then starting feeding corn or something else. So we have Piedmontese for people that are very concerned about all those things. It's a super low-fat content filet mignon. We're only going to carry the filet mignon. It has a small fat back. It is hormone free. There's no antibiotics ever added to any of their feed. It grazes naturally from beginning to end of life. It's as pure as any beef I could find that actually tastes good. I would eat it, and I don't like grass-fed beef. Not because grass-fed beef isn't good. It has a particular flavor to it, just like dry age has a particular flavor, just like wet age. And we'll learn all about that in training with Chip Thomas. But, I don't know. Did I help you guys understand what GMOs are a little bit more, or
Yeah.
yeah?
Yes.
Okay. But
And as just a quick tidbit, Richard, as some of you folks, as you're out and about, if you go shopping or you go to the store, get on the aisles and just kind of pick something up, pick up an item and look at it, see if it's GMO or if it's non-GMO and so forth, and you'll be able to pick up some ideas and see what's out there and what's not.
yeah, and see how confusing this stuff gets, because remember we just looked at organics and there's different organic labels.
Yeah.
So if it's certified, it could be 100% GMO free, right? If it's USDA, well, maybe there's 5% of GMO of the product, right? And only 95, and then just the natural organic, 30% of it could have GMOs in it, and only 70%, right? And they all have some label, some form of a label that says organic on it. It's very confusing. But that's why we have the Piedmontese steak on our menu, right? You can always tell a guest, I understand your concern. What I recommend for you, this steak is fantastic. You know, the DNA started in Italy on this steak. They brought it to the United States. There's only one ranch in the country that produces it. It's the cleanest beef you're ever going to get, and it tastes incredible. Easy sell, easy sell. And what'd you just do? You just took them from a $70 steak to a $100 steak. You made more money too. I make about the same because that steak cost me a heck of a lot more than regular beef. But it's there for a reason because there are, and you know, it's not a bad thing that these people are so health conscious. So we have to meet their need, which also, if you're getting the theme of this website, it progresses. Everything keeps tying back to the previous things, right? So it builds, you know, and the questions get harder from the guests. So you need that building of knowledge so you can answer them.
So Richard, briefly, real quick. So just this only one ranch in Piedmont, Italy, where this particular type of steak comes from, or are there others?
There's only one ranch in the United States that they
Okay.
cattle to that it's made.
Import. Got it.
So it is raised now in America, but the DNA came from Italy. That they brought some of the cattle across, and then they started breeding them here.
Good to know. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll give you the food training. You get information on all the steak sources. So salt. I started in the '80s as a chef. The first restaurant that I worked in and wound up owning, we used to buy MSG in 35-pound barrels. Even in the '80s, I did not want to use MSG, but when I started working in the place, I was a sous chef and not the chef of the restaurant. When I bought the restaurant, I got rid of the MSG. MSG is the greatest spice on the face of the earth. You can put it on anything, and it's going to taste incredible. And, you know, from the '80s back, all chefs used MSG in everything. Very few. Everything was cooked in butter. Everything had MSG in it. It wasn't until the '80s that people even started thinking about producing healthy food in restaurants. The only thing from the '80s back we all thought of was, how do we make it taste the best thing you have ever eaten? How can we make it taste better than anything you could make at home? And the answer was salt, butter, and MSG. Because I don't know how many people restaurants killed before the '80s back, but a lot of people got sick in restaurants. MSG is deadly. It's deadly. If you have it's people have an allergy to MSG, you can kill them in an instant. Nothing on our menu will ever have MSG on it. It still exists. It's the first thing I look, like Tommy says, you got to read, you know, Accent, the spice. You ever hear of Accent? They have it in all the supermarkets. It's the miracle spice. It's always in the spice section. It's 2024. Accent is a bottle of MSG. That's all it is. You can still buy it. So if you don't read the letter, people buy. A friend of mine was like, "Yeah, I put Accent on all my steaks when I barbecue. It's amazing." I was like, "Yeah, it's 100% MSG." They're like, "What?" They never read the label.
It
Right?
was the original umami.
Yeah, yeah. So salt, you know, our company, the Charlie Palmer Group, Charlie has a motto as a chef, and he is a great chef. Season high, season hard. There were times people wrote that our food was salty. I never found it salty. But it all depends on your clientele. There's some chefs that won't put a salt and pepper shaker on a table. And if you ask for the salt and pepper, they're insulted because their food is seasoned to perfection. Well, I'm sorry, there's not a chef in the world that knows my palate better than me. I know how much salt or pepper I want. And if there's not enough on there, I'm going to add it, whether the chef is insulted or not. So we have bought salt and pepper shakers for all tables. We're not that. There's restaurants, I mean, on our own. Now, we had a cafe in the Decorative Design Center in Manhattan. Our clientele was older and probably 80% women. We couldn't put salt on anything. Everybody would complain. So, we under-seasoned there. We used to have a salt caddy at Charlie Palmer Steak in Las Vegas with volcanic salt and black sand beach salt and 8 different types of salts to the table. It did, nobody really cared. It was cool for a week. So we'll do a great. Chris will pick a great salt for the dining room. We have salt and pepper shakers. The chef we will season all. If your customers ask, we add salt and pepper. That's all we're cooking our steaks in. We're not cooking our steaks with butter on them. We're not using compound butters. We're not using rubs. We're buying the best beef you can possibly buy. There's no reason to mask these steaks with anything. If you go to a steakhouse and they're, except Ruth Chris, because they do the butter sizzle plate, but they don't cook in butter. You go to a steakhouse, I will guarantee you, if they're putting butter on the steak and putting it under the grill so that the butter chars onto the outside of the steak, whatever, they're not buying prime beef. I'll tell you that right now. Because if you're buying the best steak in the world and you're doing that to it, you're killing part of the flavor profile of that steak. You need a great steak. Thomas, did anybody taste the steak Thomas was walking around with the other day?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really
Yeah.
good.
So good.
I had a little salt and pepper on it. That was it. There's no reason for us to put rubs or anything on our steak. I have a very good, huh?
Part of the reason they put butter on some of those because they don't buy steaks with high enough fat content, and they're trying to fake a prime and using a choice.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. If you're buying lower grade meats and you're trying to dress them up, they're putting rubs on them, they're putting butter on them, and everything. As soon as I see it, I know it's like that. They're buying cheap meat. Because if you're buying great meat, you wouldn't put on anything on it. Why would you mess with that flavor? It's incredible, right? Salt has had a long career. I mean, it used to be a currency in some countries. But I don't know. Chris would be better at this if we asked or we let people know that we use salt and pepper on our steaks. I think you open up a bag of worms, me personally, but I'm going to go with whatever Chris thinks, on how we let people know we cook. I think Chris is more qualified to come up with the correct terminology that you guys should use. So I'll leave that for his training when we do our in-person training. Okay? But salt is a big part of restaurants, and you need to understand it. Yeah. Wide open eats. There is no more ingredient more important than salt in a kitchen. It's a big thing. I don't know where Chef Thomas stands on sous vide cooking. Anyone know what sous vide is? Not you, Chris. Who's
Pick
there?
me.
Hi. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Vanessa.
It's a cooking technique that uses temperature control.
Yeah, they cook at lower temperatures for a long period of time. It's illegal in a lot of states.
Yeah.
So there's, with your health training, there's a danger zone where bacteria can flourish. You're basically cooking in the danger zone. So some health departments just say it ain't allowed.
Yeah.
I don't think I know we're not going to be doing any sous vide steaks. People do them. I am not a fan. I find it out bland. I think sous vide is great for hard-boiled eggs. There's a lot of things sous vide is great for, but I don't find it in the world of a steakhouse. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, that reverse cooking and it's so time consuming because you have to, put those in and then come back several hours.
I don't know. For me, I can tell when somebody's sous vide something. A lot of places like to sous vide turkey breast for Thanksgiving. I can tell right away they sous vide it. I find the flavor profile breaks down during that long cooking period. Gets a little bland for me. So I don't think Chef Thomas is planning on any of that. I haven't purchased any equipment to do it, and if he wants to do it, he's going to have to buy it himself. I buy it. Okay, so that's just some basic food knowledge. You know, Tomas and Chris are going to take you much deeper because it's hard to discuss food when you're not eating it. So, like I said, we got to keep feeding you guys and talk about what you're eating, and that's when it'll all sink in. But I just wanted you guys to understand a little bit about, you know, the level of knowledge that you need to answer questions in the dining room. And even something as stupid as salt, we should be able to talk about salt. The salt is not stupid, it's in everything. So that's the end of this page. Any questions on this page? Kai, words of wisdom on this page?
No words of wisdom, but it is very useful stuff to know. I didn't know what any of it meant really when I started getting to the French speaking terms. It's good to know.
Yeah, no, it's and like I say, all this stuff bleeds into our personal lives, our personal health as well, our children's health, our family, our friends, our significant others. Good stuff, you know, just good knowledge. I find that's the thing I like about our industry. It's like so much of it that I do at work, I can bring home into my life, you know, and it's kind of cool. You want to break or keep going?
Keep going.
Okay,
Keep going.
keep going. Get him to shut up. Alcohol, serving alcohol. This is our beverage base page. Again, this will be Chris's world for the next 2 weeks. I'm just going to give you a quick stroke. We have a responsibility serving alcohol. I had a customer in two of my places in the 80s. His name is Dennis. I loved Dennis. Dennis had a drinking problem, and I just took all his money and kept giving him alcohol. Great customer. And for many years, I'll say 20 years went by and I lost track of Dennis. And I always felt guilty about giving Dennis so much alcohol. He was a vet. He was a great guy. We're about the same age. And I always felt like, you know, did I ruin Dennis's life? Several years ago, Dennis and I reconnected. He has nothing but fond and loving memories of all those years we hung out. He's doing fine in life. He doesn't drink anymore. And I walked around with this guilt for 20 years, and he took that weight off my shoulders. And I talk to him all the time now. We have a responsibility to our guests. When Dennis drank in my establishments, I was in my 20s. I was drinking way too much. I never thought about anybody else that drank a lot. As I got older, I realized and watched customers how bad it is for them, alcohol. One of my best friends, John Carlos, I grew up with, died at 54 years old from alcoholism related, you know, items. My friend Sal DeStefano, I went all through grammar school and high school with, died from alcohol related health issues.
Recording in progress.
I don't know what that was. I've seen the good and bad side. I don't think there's anything wrong with alcohol. I think we owe our customers sense of responsibility. I can't tell you how to live. I can't tell you how much to drink. If you're drunk, our valet is not going to give you your car. I'll get in your car and drive you home, and I'll take a cab back to the restaurant. I've done it numerous times. We need to protect our guests sometimes from themselves. This is why we have to have these alcohol awareness cards, TAM cards, right? Because they want to make sure. We want to make a lot of money, but we want to keep everybody safe, okay? So, you know, serving alcohol is probably one of the biggest responsibilities that we have to live up to in our industry. It's serious business. I had a friend going to law school here. She was much younger than me. She got in a car accident and a woman fractured her wrist in the other car. She was in law school at the time. In the state of Nevada, if you get a DUI and had a car accident and someone got hurt, there's minimum 1 year mandatory in real prison. My friend went to jail for a year and a half in real prison and then lived in a halfway house for another year. Obviously, she could never become a lawyer now. It destroyed her family and her life for a good 5 years. I don't want that to happen to any of our customers. Okay? So she's doing wonderfully today. She found a new career. She, by the way, the story had a great ending, but that was a horrible time in her life. She was a really nice person. She made a mistake and she paid dearly for it. So we have to protect our customers from that. That's just it. And if Chris is in his tank top, he's going to get a DUI. If he needs a suit, he might get away with it. I like that analogy today.
And all seriousness aside, if our customers can't remember what a great time they had, it doesn't do us much anyway.
Yeah. There's certain things we have to do. If you have a guest that listen, sometimes we own a hotel. I had 2 young girls. One used to work for us recently. They stopped in our bar for a drink, left, and got killed in a car crash, both of them. They came in intoxicated, we found out through the investigation. We didn't get them drunk, but they shouldn't have got served. I think that was the takeaway. I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in any of the investigation or anything. Horrible things happen when people drink and get behind the wheel of a car. So it's our job to be responsible. We need to ID people if they came in drunk. I know it's Vegas, but we for sure have to make sure people are not driving if they're drinking too much. We're going to have customers that drink too much. I'm not saying we're never going to serve a customer that had more than 2 drinks. Some people are going to drink a bottle of wine sometimes. It happens. I personally have a high tolerance to alcohol, but I never get behind the wheel of a car if I had any more than 2 drinks, and those 2 drinks had to be a good enough distance apart. I'll Uber, but I won't drive. So if you identify somebody that might have been served too much or came in already tipsy, and you refused service to them, you need to make sure the manager knows, the bartender knows, everyone knows that you shut somebody down so we can help make it still a nice experience, right? I've done it to my friends that come into our restaurants. It's hard to cut your friends off. They don't like that. I have done it. But if I do it, and Craig and Tommy know that, we also need to, make sure that, everybody, even walk-ins, will be an open table. We should make a note in that customer profile that we had to refuse service the last time they were in. This way, the next time they come in, we're already got our guard up. Not that we're not going to serve them, but we're going to help protect them. Does that make sense? And I don't want anybody serving Kai alcohol at work. I get a kick out of myself. Sorry. Chris, take wine knowledge. Where are you going to bring? Where do you think you need to bring your staff in wine knowledge?
Well, wine knowledge, the more the better. I always say the more confident you are at the table. I would love to see everybody at least pass their introductory. It just helps. I mean, wine knowledge, you guys have me, so that helps a little bit. I love continuing education. I love bringing people that are on our wine list through. Because you'll get tired of hearing my voice, I'm sure. So it's always good to hear somebody else's. Uh, but again, it's food and wine and food. It's one with the other. it's celebrations. So making sure that we're selling the right wine to the right customers so they have a great experience is what we're going to do. Our wine list is going to be about 100 wines. It's going to be priced to where it moves. It's going to, I like to call the wine program user friendly and proper.
Mhm. So,
And our education will never stop.
Chris, you're one of the best wine guys I know. You know everything about wine?
No, that's why I'm in the business, because there's 4,000 years of history, romance, there's scientific going on that just never ends, and that's
Never.
part of the reason it drew me to it.
I have a friend, his name is John Charles Boisset. Between France, Napa, and Sonoma Valley, he owns 27 vineyards and wineries. And he's nothing compared to his wife, who's probably the biggest winemaker in the world. He's married to Nancy Gallo. John Charles and Nancy will tell you they don't know everything about wine. Between them, they're probably the biggest wine producing family. I don't know. Are there anybody bigger than Gallo and Boisset together? Chris, I don't.
I don't think so.
Not from a production level. So they're the biggest winemakers in the world. In that house, that married couple. And they don't know everything about wine. They'll be the first one to tell you they don't. So wine is a passion, a study, like Chris saying, a science. It goes on forever. The real science for us as service people is understanding what's on our list and how to pair that properly with the food we serve people. If we can lead them down a path, some people are just going to order, especially in the steakhouse world. They're going to order what they drink. They don't care. I drink white wine. They don't care that white wine doesn't really match well with steak that well, and maybe maybe a white cab or something. But there's some people they just don't care, and then there's other people that are going to really appreciate you being able to recommend something that's going to enhance what they eat. Uh, has anybody ever gone to dinner and had a tasting menu paired with wines where the chef does 5 or 7 or 9 courses and the wine sommelier or director will pair the same amount of wines with each course? Has anybody ever had that type of experience? You call it
Yes, we
tasting
have.
menus? Sorry?
Craig and I have.
Okay. So when you build things with people, your palate, Chris, give them a quick rundown. What's the 5 things your mouth can do? Sweet,
Yeah, sweet, sour, bitter, salty, citrus.
sugar lays across the top of your tongue, right?
Yeah, there's 3 parts of the tongue.
Acid bites the side. Alcohol hits you in the back of the throat. They call it a hot wine. You drink a shot of whiskey, it burns your back of your throat. That's the alcohol, right? The sides of your mouth.
There's wines that do that.
So your mouth's a pretty simple mechanism. It's the least technical sense we have. So you see people swirling wine glasses and they sniff the wine before they drink it. So Chris, what do you learn more from? Looking at the wine, smelling the wine, or tasting the wine?
Wine's 85% sense of smell. So if you have a head cold, it's a boring beverage.
Chris can tell you more about a wine by smelling it than I can by drinking it. Because your sense of smell is unlimited. There's no barriers. Your palate is very simple. When I was a bartender, to make extra money, anybody drinking a highball, a mixed drink at the bar, like a Jack and Coke, a rum and ginger ale, 7 and 7, Seagram 7 and 7 up. Anybody drinking a sweet soda, once they had 2 drinks, I'd bet them $10. I'd give them a blind tasting, 3 shots of soda, a shot of ginger ale, a shot of Coca-Cola, and a shot of 7 up. If they could tell the blind tasting, they won $10. You think you can tell the difference between 7 Up, Coca-Cola, and ginger ale? There's no difference, especially once your palate's got soiled with sugar. They all taste identically the same. They're just 3 different colors. It's mostly marketing. We believe the marketing, but the palate is pretty dumb. It can only do a couple of things. So when we pair, your palate also gets worn out quick, right? So when you pair things, there's 2 ways to go. You can do likes or opposites, and both can enhance the other flavor, right? So you can, you know, sweet wine with foie goes very well. Certain flavor profiles go it, but the one thing you do is you build flavors. So I can't give you a Cabernet, which is a big heavy red wine, or a Bordeaux, and then ask you to taste a Chardonnay. You won't be able to tell the characteristics because you've already built it. So when we build meals for people, or you suggest, always think of milder flavors, lighter tastes, next course heavier, heavier, heavier. So, you may start with an hors d'oeuvre, an amuse-bouche, that the chef sends somebody with a sip of bubbly, right? 2 nice mild things. You wouldn't send out something to get the palate going. It's called an amuse-bouche. You wouldn't send out, I don't know what's an example, something very strong with a heavy red sauce on it.
No, you wouldn't send out a Zin.
Right.
A
And a heavy
Zinfandel is like
wine,
the
right? We're sending out sparkling wine and something like maybe a caviar parfait, as an offering to the guests. And then we're going into a salad or an appetizer course. And then, then maybe there's a Chardonnay or something, right? A little more flavor than the champagne. And then we're going to get to the meat course, and then here comes the red wine, right? So that's how you build and pair, but you'll learn it. But again, I just want to, this part of it is to try to get your expectations up to what level of knowledge is going to be expected, not by us, by your guests from you. They're going to look to you to teach them and guide them. They love that, right? Sometimes, I told you I sold caviar for a living. The fellow that taught, caviar is a hard sell. It's so expensive, even people with money. We had taglines. It's like, you're not looking at this correctly. You're not buying food here. You're buying an experience that's going to last a lifetime in your mind. We have to take them away from the fact that they're spending $2,500 on a thing this big. It didn't make any sense to them. So my boss, he was 5th generation. His daughters have the business now in New York. It's called Russ and Daughters. Mark was a really smart guy. He said, when you sell somebody anything, the first thing you do is you make them the expert in a conversation. For example, who hasn't talked yet? We talked to Tamara. Melissa.
Hello.
Hi, Melissa. Nice to meet you. What do you do?
I'm the beverage attendant.
You're a beverage attendant? What is that? I don't understand that job.
I help you decide what beverages would work best for what you're wanting out of your experience today.
And you know how to figure out what I want, like from talking to me?
Well, do you like sweet drinks, or are you more of you like whiskeys, or tell me about what it is that you like.
So here's what I'm doing. I'm making her the expert. You're trying to sell me, right? But you're my customer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you did what naturally happens. I asked you how you do your job, and you went right into it. You dominated the conversation all of a sudden, right? I just took you off guard. You have just taken control of the conversation. And that's what I wanted you to do. Because now you feel like you're the alpha dog in the conversation. I'm still the alpha dog. I brought you there. I wanted to bring you there. Because when you start talking about yourself, no one knows you better. You're confident. Once I get you there, then I'm going to suggest what I'm going to sell you.
That makes sense.
Because psychologically, you're dominating this conversation. Okay, that's a good suggestion. Yeah, I'll take that. It works every time. It's not in restaurants or food. I mean, in life, you want to get somebody or to do something you want to do, make them the expert first.
Yeah.
I was young. I was like 21 years old, 22. I was amazed. It was a game for me. I controlled everybody I sold to. It's probably the single best piece of sales advice I ever got in my life from anyone. And it works. It works like a charm. And and Chris knows this as well. So, this will all be part of that upselling and how to sell. But you can't do it unless you are somewhat of an expert, right? Melissa was just telling me the basic principles behind it. But if I ask her, oh, so this Frey Ranch is really good, tell me about Frey Ranch, you need to be able to tell me about Frey Ranch. I can tell you everything there is to know about Frey Ranch because I went there to see because I was amazed by the product, right? So I can tell you how he got the property. I can tell you how many acres it is. I can tell you all the different products he grows on that farm. I can tell you the different products he grows. I can tell you he has 2 different types of stills, and it's only one small room that's putting out millions of bottles of whiskey a year, which amazed me. I can go on and on about Frey's Ranch, right? Once I do that to you, you're buying Frey's Ranch. I gotta have this. I gotta try it, right? That's where you want to get people to. So your enthusiasm level, and again, everything's going back to the early pages of self-evaluation, happy employees, everything ties in. All these principles tie together, which ultimately helps us give a customer a new and great dining experience. It's not as simple as people think, and it's not as complicated as people think. These principles are all pretty basic, right? But you have to use them all. You got to take all these things we're talking about and wrap it up into a nice little 30-second package that's going to take us 4 days to get there. So that's where we're at on that. Again, this will be Chris's world going through. Champagne, my favorite. We bought the coolest bar top wine chillers. They sit on the bar, they're angled, and they look really cool. I would love to sell a lot of champagne in our restaurant only because I have a deep, loving passion for champagne. It's my favorite thing to drink. Champagne is very fruit friendly. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of meals you can drink champagne from beginning to end, and it's still going to hold up. It might not be.
It is one of the few wines that from amuse bush to dessert you wouldn't have to change a bottle if you had.
And most of the time when I go out to eat, if I'm buying bottles of wine, it's bottles of champagne all the way through the meal. I just find it so food friendly. I find it hangout friendly. I don't know. It just makes me feel good. There's also, and I'm sure Chris will explain this to you, but what's really weird is your body absorbs, and I used to know the science behind it. I don't anymore. I'm sure Chris does, but your body absorbs alcohol quicker from wine than it does from beer and spirits. And I'm sure Chris can give you the whole scientific thing, but champagne for me is I'm going to feel good after the first glass. Where alcohol, I might have to have 2 or 3 drinks before I start feeling good. So I can drink a lot less when I drink champagne or wine.
The basis is that your body digests wine like food, where the other 2 it absorbs.
That's a great. Nobody ever put it as simple as that, but that's a great thing. Great way to explain it. But the problem is you get a hangover twice as fast too before you can go to sleep. You had a hangover. Everything moves faster. But we'll talk and drink a lot of champagne during training. Dessert wines, another unbelievable passion that I have for wine is dessert wines, especially, and Chris will laugh at me, but I love Austrian dessert wines. I like French dessert wines. I love ice wine. Dessert wines tend to be sweeter. The reason being, not Chris. Somebody tell me why dessert wines tend to be sweeter. I said
They're
about
fortified.
No. I said about 10 minutes ago, there's 2 ways to pair. Sometimes you pair opposites and they kind of complement each other. And sometimes you pair likes. Right? Desserts are sweet. Dessert wines are sweet. they pair well. Am I saying it correctly, Chris?
Yes, they do. I mean, it's like a marriage is the way I put it. The pairing sometimes opposites attract, sometimes likes, stay together for 30 years. Sometimes it's the opposites, right? It's a marriage.
Now, Tommy just mentioned they're fortified. Does anybody know what a fortified wine is?
Chris, Rich and Chris, I have a question real quick. Sorry to interrupt. Aren't dessert wines also sweeter because the grapes that they're using are on the vines longer, so they ripen further and accumulate more sugars?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, 100%.
There's two ways to do it. You start with the really sugary grape, and as it starts to ferment, the alcohol, the yeast dies out because due to the high sugar and the alcohol that it creates.
Got it.
You could start
That's
with
what I
this.
thought.
You could start with the sweeter wine and blend brandy back into it, and it stops everything. And then that's like a port, where a dessert wine, like an ice wine, is sort of a natural process. A
Yeah,
port,
so that goes to the fortified wine, which is a distilled spirit.
folded back in, fortified, yes. Where an ice wine
Brandy
is
folded
sort of
back
a
into the
natural.
wine. And brandy's a
Yep.
great also. What you're talking about, Craig, is like ice vine would be the real example of leaving something. It's called the ice vine because they leave it on the vine to leave in the frost, right? And it
Right.
constantly, as the water content in the grape dissipates, the sugar capacity in that grape per capita of weight increases. Correct, Chris?
Yeah, as the grape freezes twice, it pushes the water out of the skin because the sugar molecules tighten up.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right, Craig. But that's only one way, right? Like Chris explained. But yeah, but the key point is that they pair well because they're light, right? And even ports have a certain level of sweetness to them. They're a little hotter because they're fortified. I asked was, what's a fortified wine? Fortified, they've introduced something else to the wine, brandy or something that increases the alcohol content. That's why it's called fortified. Usually that's a port, which is a nice dessert wine. Ports and chocolate. Stronger wine, stronger flavor from the chocolate, right? Nothing more luxurious in the world than finishing a meal with a port and a couple of chocolates. My buddy Steve comes in from California every 2 weeks. We usually eat dinner when he comes. He'll call me up and go, "Are we having ports and chocolate tomorrow night?" That's his way of asking me if we're going for dinner. He becomes like a little girl when he thinks about getting ports and chocolate because he loves it so much. All right, so that's a little touching on dessert wines. I don't know, Craig. This is a big fad now. Will we have a hard seltzer in house? Are you on mute?
I know we're looking at one like Truly. I mean, not Truly. Oh gosh, what's the other one? It's so popular. It's not even on that screen.
It's not White Claw. I thought White Claw.
Yeah, no. Heck, I'm gonna have to go in my refrigerator and look.
So everybody's familiar with, to me,
I know what you're talking about.
are the same as hard ciders. It's an alcoholic beverage with a lighter flavor.
Oh, there. I'm sorry. Now you can hear me. I was on mute.
Yeah.
I'm thinking High Noon is the one that I want to use, and then we can experiment and see which flavors are going to move. What
Okay.
ones move and what ones don't.
The question is,
But we'll have one.
We'll have at least one seltzer for people that like it. They're very popular today. I don't think they're as popular as they were last year. And last year, I don't think they were as popular as they were the year before. So I think it's one of these trends that will come and go. But there's still quite a few people drinking hard seltzers, so we should have some. Our beer program, we started out, we wanted to try to do only beers from Las Vegas breweries. I couldn't find any I would drink, so we're gonna have a pretty traditional beer list now. hopefully we'll find one or two local brews that will, we can fit in.
Yeah, we're gonna have a couple selections from local stuff. Our IPA is gonna be from a local brewery, and our lager is gonna be which is the one we sold a ton of at Charlie Palmer's Steak. The Las Vegas lager. That's, I believe, off the top of my head, Big Dogs. And then I know for the IPA, I want one that's not overly hoppy, but still very fruit forward and very floral. I think that'll be a good IPA to sell.
The just so you guys know, in the world of steakhouses, we sell very little beer. We'll sell almost no seltzer. Maybe 3 or 4 cents on the dollar will be beer, Craig.
Give or take, yeah.
We don't sell as much alcohol as you would think. Maybe 10 cents. If we're lucky, 10 cents on a dollar will be martinis and drinks. Maybe. Usually it's 8 or 9 in a steakhouse. But 30 cents on a dollar will be wine. And wine knowledge is really where you're going to have to focus, your learning on. It's a huge part of our income. The more beverage we sell, the more profitable we are. I would like to see us be 55% food sales, 45% beverage sales. That's where we want to be. That's probably about as high of a percentage of beverage sales to food that we could probably accomplish in a meaningful manner and deliver a great experience, but that would be really good. And the only way we get there is by you guys having knowledge. Non-alcoholic program will be very straightforward. Unlike a lot of places that you've worked before, anything you get that people drink comes from only 2 places. Bottles of wine will come from a manager in the dining room. You'll all learn how to open them and everything else, but that's who will be handing you those wines when you need them. Every single thing else, glasses of wines, alcohol, juices, coffee, water, comes from the bar. The espresso machine is behind the bar. You need an espresso, you need a latte. It's coming over just like any other beverage. You got to ring it into the computer, you get it. Coffee service is French press. There'll be 2 sizes for an individual or for 2. You will get that from the bar. I will buy different coffee for the staff. There'll be a coffee machine in the locker room for you guys. You want a cup of coffee, you will have to get a cartridge from the bar. Anything we drink in this restaurant, employees or service, comes over the bar. It's all controlled. Nobody's making pictures of espressos in the kitchen in a beer pitcher with ice. It doesn't happen here. I will buy stuff for the staff, but you will have separate items that I sell to customers. If I bought something for a customer, it's for customers only. If I bought something for the staff, they're fine to enjoy it. Is that fair?
Very fair. Absolutely.
We are a pilot of a new brand. Our profit and loss, we have to account for every cent on our profit and loss so that we can grow this company into a place where there's investors, maybe it goes public, board of directors. The only way we're going to do that is to show that we are financially responsible for every penny we spend. That's the only types of companies people like to invest in. So it's not because we're cheap. We try to achieve something as a group here, and being financially responsible is part of it. I have no problem buying things for the staff, but we just need to separate it, right? Because people are going to be looking at our cost of goods sold when it comes to food and beverages. And if it's $10,000 or $20,000 a year I'm spending on the staff for beverages and things, we don't want that mixed in with how we run the manufacturing side of our business. I need to separate it. People understand we took care of the staff, that's how much money we spent. But it's a separate thing. Can't blend into our cost of goods sold. Okay? Let me check our training schedule. I don't know if we're.
Hey, Craig, one question. Craig, are we going to do an energy drink?
Uh,
He's going like this, Chris.
there. 100% no.
Okay, I just wondering, cause
No, I don't
making
want
sure
people getting jacked up on Red Bull and not eating food.
no problem. I'm just checking.
And it'll also, they're drinking vodka and Red Bull at the bar. There's not going to be a wine in the building that's going to taste right.
It tastes like vitamins.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep. You're on the
I-
you're in agreement with that?
Yes, sir. Just
All right.
that's the way I feel. It's not a shot bar.
Right. Exactly.
All right, guys, I'm going to ask everybody to go on mute. 11:50, we'll 5-minute break. Stretch your legs. Get your mind free. We got one more page to go, the most important page. We're going to talk about steak next. Okay? And then we'll be done for today. So I'll be back in 5 minutes. get a chance in my closet, I have two big eating sticks. One of them I moved to. Okay, we back. Everybody here?
Yep.
Present.
I'm
Yeah,
here.
I'm here.
How many
Okay.
people said present?
I did.
Present.
Me too.
Oh, we're not up to stakes. I picked the wrong day. Let me check our schedule one more time. Yeah. I think I got confused, or Vanessa, we might have put things not in order. I'm not sure. Today
That
is
steak's on the itinerary.
right, food, beverage, state question and answer. Okay, so we have the environments tomorrow. Okay, so let's stick to it. Chop chop. You guys still see the screen? You see the woman with the drink? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to the steak page. So, Chris, Craig, Tommy, silent. Somebody tell me where we get beef. Where does beef come from? Not you, Vanessa. You did your training already. Tamara,
Yes.
where's beef come from?
Where does beef come from?
Yeah.
I know beef is a cow,
Okay.
and that's why I don't eat it because I'm a vegetarian.
Okay, Kai, where's beef come from?
Is it like the thighs of the leg?
Trina, where's beef come from?
Nope. Okay.
A cow.
Who else is
Is it
on
from the butcher?
Yeah.
Beef is any cut, I thought, from a cow.
We get milk from cows.
Okay, so the males.
Here.
Steers.
Yes.
We
The
don't
males.
eat cows. We eat steers. Okay, guys? That's lesson one. Steak is over. No. It's important to know that. There's a difference, right? We get milk from cows. When we're farming animals or cattle to eat, they're steers. All right? A cattle ranch is full of steers. There's primary cuts to an animal and there's secondary cuts. And I don't know if they call them third cuts, but with steaks, they only refer to steaks as primary and secondary cuts. If we look at the top of a cow, along a cow's back or their strap, the chuck is up front. We don't use a chuck for anything in our restaurant. Chuck is good for stew. Chuck is good for pot roast, maybe. Chuck is good for chopped meat. It's tough. The more a muscle is used in an animal, the tougher it gets. You wouldn't want to eat your biceps. You'd be chewing for a long time. As we move down the rib cage, because that's the top of the steer is his back, right? And this is pretty much the same in, pigs and other animals, okay? There's three sections now to this part of the rib cage that's in red. The front section is the rib. The second section is the short loin. And the third section is the sirloin. And these muscles in that rib cage are really large in the front of the animal. And as we go back, they get smaller and smaller. So the eye of the muscle in the rib is larger than the eye in the muscle of the short loin, which is larger than the muscle in the sirloin. The rest of this animal, I have no use for. There's three things in red: the rib, the short loin, and the tenderloin. That's all you need to know about, because every piece of steak we're going to sell is going to come from those three areas of the animal. This tenderloin, that's a long dotted kind of, I don't know, oval around the word tenderloin. It's shown that way because it's on the inside of the rib cage, not where the other muscles are. And it has no function per se in the animal's walking and strenuous movements. Because an animal doesn't use their tenderloin, what did I say 1 minute ago? The more a muscle is used, what's the rest of the sentence?
The tougher it is.
The tougher the meat gets. The more the muscle is used, the tougher the muscle gets when we talk about eating it. So a rib, take a guess, what steak comes from the rib?
Ribeye.
That was about as easy as the question gets.
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk.
And what is a ribeye, right? A ribeye, everybody ever eat prime rib? Come on, guys, talk. I got to make sure everybody's awake. Does anybody?
Yes.
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 So all the prime rib is that rib section cooked whole. Prime rib is a steak, but it's the whole section of that rib cooked whole, roasted, and then sliced to serve, right? It's a type of a steak. I love prime rib. Anybody ever eat a ribeye steak?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Same
Yes.
steak as a prime rib, only individually cut and portioned, right? Anybody ever have a tomahawk steak?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
It's a ribeye with a longer bone. Cowboy steak, ribeye with a longer bone. It might be more towards the front bones of the cow on a cowboy, which has a longer steak. I think I have it right, Chris. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then, so the cowboys, I think, are up front. They have the longest ribs. The tomahawk, not quite as long as a cowboy bone. So they're just different bones in there. They're all ribeye steaks. Tomahawk, cowboy, prime rib, ribeye, same steak. Not hard to remember. How it's cut, from what section of the rib it's cut from, how it's cooked. That's the only difference in the four steaks. Delmonico steak. There's a lot of different definitions. A Delmonico steak is usually a ribeye. It's usually a thinner cut or an English cut ribeye. In England, they serve ribeye steaks thin cut or sliced, and then with a horseradish cream, right? All these steaks, it's the same steak. It's the eye of the rib. And we're going to need to memorize where these come from. You're working in a steakhouse business, and even if you're a vegetarian, you need to be able to explain to the guests because they're coming.
Hey, Rich,
Yeah.
You had that backwards. The tomahawk is a longer bone. The cowboy, the bone's Frenched.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
It's
pretty
pretty
sure
much-
I'm right with that.
Yeah, but it's pretty much the same thing, right? It's just that, like he's saying, it's a difference in the length and prep of the bone, but it's still a ribeye steak. I'm not a fan of either of those steaks. You're not going to see them very often. Reason being is because most of them come from the end cuts. You can't make them from the center cuts, and the center of that rib. That's where the eye is perfect. That's the steak I want to serve. I really don't care how big the bone is, right? Because the best
And the
steak.
guests pay for guys pay for a bone and it's not fair.
No, yeah, because you're paying by the pound, basically. We got to price it by the pound. So I'm not a big fan of those big bone steaks because they're kind of meaningless. We will have a bone-in ribeye and a boneless ribeye. Cooking a steak on the bone, as the meat gets closer to the bone, you cook it on. It does add to the flavor profile, but I don't need that other piece of bone that doesn't touch a piece of meat. That's just, it's just for show. Doesn't add anything to the dish. So as we move towards, sorry,
Richard, pardon me, real quick, but speaking of bone-in, will there be a bone-in tenderloin such as a fillet?
well, there might be at times. Right now, we don't. We toyed with that's called the European cut. We toyed with it, but again, the ultimate decision lied on what Chris said. Do I really want to charge the customers for the bone?
Yeah, there's always somebody who will ask for.
I'm not saying never, Tommy, but probably be
Gotcha.
more on special or the Mr. B menu than on the regular menu.
Gotcha.
I like a French style tenderloin. I love it.
I'll have a conversation with Mr. B.
I love it when they leave the fat chain on too, because I think that adds to the flavor when they're cooking it. So, but yeah, I'm nothing's never, right? Right now we don't have one on the main menu. All right, so now we're moving to the short loin. And Craig, correct me if I get this one backwards. All right. Anybody ever hear of New York strip steak? Oh, there's one more steak from the rib. The Kansas City ribeye. Still have no idea why they call it that. It's just a ribeye steak. Short loin. Anybody ever eat New York strip steak or strip steak?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a smaller eye than the ribeye, right? This rib cage is getting thinner as you're going towards the rear of the animal. The front cage, the rib tends to be fattier, right? It's like you ever see these animals up close, right? They got shoulders and back. So their fat backs are much thicker up here in the front rib than when you get to the short loin. That rib, that layer of fat around the muscle is starting to get smaller now. So your ribeye is going to be the juiciest of all the steaks. It's kind of medium, bold flavor, but it's definitely the juiciest, the highest fat content. There's a trend right now selling beef caps, which is the outer rim of the rib. I don't get it. It tastes okay, but everybody's going crazy for it right now. Again, I'm not a big trend follower. I'm sure by next year they'll forget about these rib caps. But anyway, short loin is where the New York strip comes from. It is a smaller eye. As we go towards the rear of the animal, the eye keeps getting smaller. It's got a bolder beef flavor because it has less of a fat content. So the fat content as we're moving back is getting smaller or less fat content, and the flavor of the beef comes through more. So that's why the ribeye will taste a little bit milder beef flavor, but juicier because it has more fat. But the short loin will have more muscle than fat. So the beef flavor starts coming through much bolder and the fat content goes down. You have T-bone steaks and porterhouse steaks. If you look towards the rear of the short loin, the tenderloin is on the other side of that bone. So when you're looking at a short rib, a porterhouse steak or a T-bone steak, what you're actually looking at is what's the word? Where's my nurse? Trina, when the machine takes x-rays.
It's a division. It's kind of like
Not a division. There's a
cross section.
Laterally?
A cross section, right? Like an x-ray.
yeah.
Take these cross sections. So if I take a cross section of a short loin, I am going to see the New York strip steak here. I'm going to see the rib here, and I'm going to see the tenderloin behind the rib cage. That's why there's two pieces of meat on that bone. There's two different muscles. Okay. The difference between a porterhouse and a T-bone. A T-bone comes from the part where the muscles got smaller. So if you look in the supermarket and they have T-bone steaks, you're going to see this little piece of tenderloin on one side and a smaller New York strip on the other side of that rib. We'll be serving porterhouse steaks for two. You have a full-size New York strip and a full-size filet mignon on that bone. And that's my favorite steak in the world to share with people. It's wonderful. Sirloin, we don't use it because the eye has gotten too small now. They sell sirloin steaks in the supermarket. They're probably half the price of a New York strip. Reason being is the eyes are very small for the muscle. And by the time you get all the way to the back of that spine, there's hardly any fat back or fat content. So it'll be a much, much heavier beef flavor, so much so that it won't taste as good as the sirloin. It'll be too much. Sometimes they're overpowering. It's a cheap steak. We won't serve it. And then existing today in our steakhouses that operate, if we sell 500 filet mignons, we might sell 100 New York strips and 100 ribeyes. America eats filet mignon. It's tender, it's mild flavored, it's probably healthier than the other steaks. It has the lowest fat content. It's a great steak. And we're buying prime fillets. I have not found another restaurant in the city buying prime fillets. T-bones, where it almost came from. The only other place, so far, it's the only steakhouse I found serving prime steaks. Prime by John George does not serve prime filet mignon. Most chefs think that prime filet mignon is a waste of money. I don't. I think there's a major difference in the flavors. And the reason they think it's a waste of money is because prime's got a lot to do with fat content, and filet mignon has the lowest fat content. So why are you spending the extra money on something that doesn't have a high fat content to begin with? That's the mindset, but I'll get some upper choice prime fillets for you guys to taste. I'm going to buy some steaks that are right under the tier, not cheap steaks, but right under the tier or level we're going to be at while you guys are tasting food, because I want you to taste the difference. It's not a little. It's a lot. And the difference in price for us is a lot, not a little. But it's worth it. And the customers are going to see it's worth it. So basically, to recap, we're only going to be studying the rib, the short loin, and the tenderloin. There are steaks that come down on the belly of the animal. You got skirt, which is a type of muscle, right? Heard of skirt steaks? We don't sell skirt steaks. The flank is another muscle that is sold as steaks. Flank steaks, we don't serve them. Tips, try tip steaks, all over the supermarkets. We don't serve them, okay? We're not using anything but the three best portions of the animal. And we're not using anything but the finest grade and center cut portions of these animals. The only thing we will butcher in our restaurant is tenderloins. And the reason I do that is because almost the entire tenderloin is wonderful. You got a little piece of cap left and you got a little piece of tail left, but the rest of it's perfect steaks. The rib and the short loin, the ends, the very front of the rib, the very back of the short loin tends to have a lot of cartilage, sinew. I get infuriated when I'm in a steakhouse paying $100 for prime rib and I get an end cut of the rib. Not prime rib, a ribeye steak. It's going to be chewy. It's going to have like veins running through it. We're only buying the centers. Center steaks, portion controlled. Every guest's going to get the best cut of that animal, because that's what they're there for, and that's what we're there for to do. So there's a lot on this chart. You only got to worry about understanding three pieces of it, right? So not so complicated, right?
Richard, that's kind of great, because you're literally just honing in on the most prime, tender cuts of meat, and the guests, it'll be consistent. And once they get it and they experience it, they're damn sure to come back, because they're gonna, if they are experienced steak eaters throughout the city and they taste this, they will know.
We have a consulting chef who I admire more than any other chef I've ever met. And as we were planning the menu, because you need more entrees. We have 5 entrees outside of steak. We have 2 pieces of thin fish. We have a chicken dish. We have a lobster dish, and we have a pasta. This is not enough of a variety. I said, you're right. It's not enough of a variety for a lot of people, but we have 60 seats in our main dining room. I only want people that are serious about coming to a steakhouse. We have every kind of restaurant in the world in Las Vegas. They can go somewhere else for everything else. We want serious people that are serious steakhouse enthusiasts and will pay the right price for the best possible steaks in the world. That's why I don't want flanks. I don't want skirts. I can put a flat iron steak on the menu for $30. You go, ooh, people would like that. Yeah, but I'm not going to stamp their memory. You guys are going to work so hard at doing the greatest hospitality and service, and then I'm going to put a mediocre piece of meat on their plate. That's like insulting you guys for all your hard work, in my opinion. We want people that appreciate what you do and the food we serve. That's our customer. Everybody is not our customer. I've said this my whole life. Everybody's not our customer. We're going to do one thing, and we're going to do it better than everybody else. Right? Cane's Chicken, there's not a finer chicken tender in a fast food restaurant, in my opinion. Anyway, you got to wait sometimes a half hour online to get, if you're a Caniac, they'll wait. Right? They do one thing, chicken tender. Right? In-N-Out Burger. You ever gone to In-N-Out Burger and not be online in your car? You make a hamburger. And that's what we are going to be in the steak world. We serve steak, the best steak. When you want it, you come to us because you're not going to get a finer steak. Right? That's what we do. It's the core of the existence of this business. It's the steak. And Tamira, the pasta dish will always be a vegan dish.
Yes.
I don't discount anyone, but Andrew Devitt, been in my son's life since he's 2. I think he's the greatest human being on the face of the earth. He has a tattoo on his arm from his wrist to here that says, "Meat is murder." And he loves our steakhouses because there's so many things there he can eat. Steakhouses are friendly for vegetarians and vegans. Right? We always have a wonderful array of como se llama? Wonderful array of vegetables and sides and salads and things he loves, So we're good. What's up, boss? High five? Okay. Thanks. So let's move along. But I mean, does that relax you that there's just this small section of the animal that we really have to have intimate knowledge about, right? I don't think it's a whole lot to learn.
Yeah, you know what? It's simple, Richard. It could be intimidating for a lot of people to sit there and think, "Oh my God, do I have to memorize all these parts of the cattle, of the steer?" And I sit there and think, "Oh my gosh, 3 simple sections and where they come from." And if you have eaten any type of meat, either than Tamara, which we respect that you are a vegetarian, it'll click. It'll click so easy.
Yeah, I have a friend, Wendy, in South Carolina, and she buys her beef once a year. She buys a half a steer. And I just 2 weeks ago, she called me. It was that time of year. I had to take the entire half of the animal for her, and we figured out how to have the butcher cut it. She has 2 huge freezers, and she freezes this animal, and she feeds her kids, her grandkids. It's the beef for the year for her. By buying it that way, and she's got the steaks we serve plus all the other cuts. We make hamburger, we make chunk out of certain areas and everything, and she winds up paying $5.45 a pound for beef. That's what she paid this year. Cleaned under.
Yeah, I did the same thing. My family's cattle ranchers from Idaho, so we just went up. I think I told you, picked up our side of beef for the year.
Yeah, that's mid-America. That's how they live. In order to get a comfort level with steak and beef, we need to communicate it well with our guests, right? You want to figure out their flavor profiles, right? When all else fails, I never have a problem when I sell somebody a filet mignon. You know, if you have a customer and they're getting all wishy-washy and everything. But remember what I was telling you about selling. Talk to the customer for 30 seconds, put them in charge. They're going to buy whatever you suggest because they're just going to feel empowered and say, yes, you know me so well now. You know, so cows are classified different ways. There's bulls. Bulls are not the type of cattle we eat. Bulls are there to get everybody pregnant, right? Calves are young crowd. Veal is like foie gras. For some reason, well, not for some reason, veal was mistreated probably from the 1980s back. They would take a young calf, they would keep it in a very small confined place so it couldn't move, like a box or something. It would live there and never move. Why didn't they want it to move?
They want the meat to be tender, not, they don't want the muscles to be active and get all hard. So they want the meat to be tender, the less movement.
Less movement, more tender meat. And they were milk fed. Didn't get real food. It would make their muscles white almost. It was this light pink color, milk fed veal. It was incredible meat, but it was cruel. We don't sell veal. Veal has pretty much fallen off the face of the earth, except for a few Italian restaurants. You very rarely see veal on the menu because it was so cruel the way they raised it. So people stopped eating it. That's fine by me. You're really not going to. I can't imagine Chef Thomas putting veal on the menu. There's no demand for it anymore. Cows are cattle after their first calving. They're raised for milk production, right? Heifers are young cows or cows before calving. So before they have children, right? Stags are male cattle castrated after maturity. They're not very desirable cattle stags. They're a DNA that's got too much muscle mass, not enough fat mass, things like that. When those DNAs show up, they're used for dog food, basically. There's all grades of beef, prime being the top. The bottom is called canner because it's used for canned dog food and things like that. So that's the lowest grade of beef, and that's what stags are used for. Steers, that's what we eat. That's our steaks, steers, right? They're castrated. They're not used to reproduce, or mate. They are raised and farmed as a food source. Unless you're Tamira and you don't eat meat at all, there's nothing wrong with this. Tamira, do you know as a percentage of population how many people are vegetarian and vegan?
I don't know.
I don't think it's very big.
No, I don't think so. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of people, like you called like a semi-vegetarian, but aren't real vegetarians. I definitely don't eat meat at all. I'll eat like some product, like you said, butter.
Yeah.
So I'm not vegan because it's not really my lifestyle, but definitely don't eat meat or fish.
So my friend Vinny, hardcore vegetarian, the Charlie Palmer steak, a little dinner party. He ordered a ribeye. I almost fell off my chair. He's like, he's a morally conscious person. That's why he doesn't eat the meat. Not because he doesn't like it. He goes, I can't take it. I gotta have it. I never saw it in a long time. My wife became a vegan. It lasted 3 days. She could take it. It's not easy, We're used to eating meat, I do admire people that can take a social stand against eating animals. I'm not one of them, but I don't put them down for it. I think maybe they're stronger than me. I will tell you Uh, 3 years ago, I weighed 120 pounds. I'm 6'6", and I had cancer, and every muscle in my body had atrophied, even my fingers. That's why my hands look a little weird. I had no muscle mass anywhere, and they made me eat steak every day. They said the only way you're going to build these muscles back in your body is you need the enzymes and everything from cattle. It's the only way your muscles. And I built all my muscles back, but I ate steak almost every day for a year.
I stopped eating meat and lost like 20 pounds. So that makes sense. You did the opposite.
Yeah, no. Well, I had to eat starches with it too. I
Mhm.
just was. I gained too much weight back. I was 205 pounds before I got sick. And when I started gaining weight, I started gaining it fast and I went all the way to 235. So I just lost 20 pounds. Uh, but I drank a lot of fruit juices. I loved orange juice. I loved grapefruit juice, stuff like that. We were talking about single chain carbohydrates and multi chain carbohydrates. Well, those processed juices from all the big names we know, that's all multi chain carbohydrates. I stopped drinking that stuff. And you would think, oh, he's drinking orange juice. He's being healthy. He's drinking. Oh my God, weight started falling off. It was unbelievable. And then I was treating an ulcer. Uh, I stopped. I make bolognese sauce 10 gallons at a time in my house. We freeze it in bags, and we love pasta. And I love being able to just go and get a bag from the freezer and heating up the sauce and making the pasta. And I got a 20-minute meal, and it's very convenient to do it that way. But there's a lot of acid in tomato sauce, so all of a sudden I'm not eating pasta. So just between the juices and the pasta, 20 pounds fell off me. I couldn't believe it. Just two things. Those are really the only two things I pulled out of my diet. So it's amazing what these multi-chain carbohydrates can do to you. And somebody like Tamara, if you're following a healthier protocol and you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and things like that, and you're keeping away from all these multi-chain carbohydrates, you wind up shimmying a lot because you feel good.
That's why I shimmy so much.
Hey, Richard, in the US, 4% are vegetarian, 1% are vegan.
Yeah, I know it's very few. I did a vegan menu at the steakhouse here in Four Seasons. You would have thought I stabbed somebody's mother. It was a big flop. They didn't even want it on the menu, our customers. They were like, get this stuff away from our beef. It was terrible. Like I said something bad about their family or something. It's funny. Yeah, steakhouse customers are meat eaters. It's pretty good. Please disregard any other kinds of animals or cattle. And remember, we only use steers. And to everybody that said cow, when Joe O'Brien wrote this page, he asked me, and I said, cows. Same answer as you until he educated me. I didn't. And I've been in the restaurant business a long time at that point. And he looked at me with such disgust. And I never said cows again. We don't have to get into all these other cut stuff here because you already know we're only dealing with 3 cuts of the whole animal, right? Side of beef, 4/4. Again, there's a lot more information about beef here than I expect you to need in your current jobs, right? Not bad to know it, but you don't need it. And then, here's the breakdown of the primal cuts: the rib and the short loin regularly feature strip steaks, shell steaks, filet mignon, porterhouse, ribeye. Those are all the cuts we serve. That little paragraph right there, that's it. And a porterhouse would be the filet mignon and the New York strip together on the rib, right? The rib comes from primal beef. I already covered Kansas City, the short loin. When we were looking at the chart, all these things down here were covered. How it's raised, the flavor, and I think I've touched on this, depending on what we feed them. Most steer is all graze. Very, very rarely somebody will raise cattle on different feeds from beginning to end. You let them graze to a certain amount of lifespan, then you might switch them to a different kind of feed, grain fed, corn fed. Uh, you're building flavor profiles. The old saying, "We are what we eat." Well, that goes for cattle as well. They are what they eat. They're going to taste. Some of the tastes of things they eat will come through in their flavor profile of the animal. So that's why they change things. If, for example, if there's something you need to know about the feed of a certain steak we sell, we will teach you it. Piedmontese. It's going to be on the menu. It's 100% grass fed. It was never finished with anything, right? Totally organic, totally hormone free. We'll teach you each of the types. We're going to be serving 5 kinds of beef. Everything's prime. Wet aged, dry aged, and we'll get into those in a minute. Wet aged, dry aged, American Wagyu, Japanese Wagyu, and tree hugger. Tree hugger is my own term. That's the Piedmontese. Tree huggers are that's our grass fed beef. That's what you would normally see on a menu. Grass fed beef. So those are the 5 types. There's something for everybody. If it's a wet-aged ribeye without a bone, a dry-aged ribeye has a bone. There'll be little variations, but it's only the 5 steaks. Dry aging. Outside of anybody that worked for us and Chris, somebody tell me what they think dry aging is. I'll take it off the screen before you can read it. No one knows what dry-aged beef is?
Hanging it so it can dry.
Okay.
Not wet.
You're on the right track. And why did they do that?
No idea.
Honest answer. I like it. That's why we're here. Chris, tell them what happens to beef when you dry it.
Yes, sir. Just came from Knife Steakhouse, where we dry age everything up to 240 days. Dry aging is basically you're taking water out of it or water content. You're also implementing microorganisms and biological effect that change the meat. The way I can explain it to customers before, when you have a wet age, you're gonna have a nice little sort of irony quality to it. 45 to 60 days, you get a little mushroomy quality. Past 60 to 90, you'll get a little more of a gamey quality, and then when you get to 120 to 240, you'll get blue cheese. And it's all about the enzymes interacting with the meat and the fat content. A ribeye ages differently than a strip or a New York would. You'll get more of a full flavor out of something that has less fat content. And it tenderizes a little bit.
Now, this is why I always say Chris is smarter than me. So here's my definition of, and he's, way better, more detailed definition than me. I tell people, the dry aging does 2 things. It intensifies the flavors and changes the flavor profile. Dry aged beef tends to get a little nutty flavor, correct, Chris, to it? Just in the general sense of the word. Like Chris says, it'll change more and more. We're not doing 60 or 120 day or, we're not getting crazy amounts of aging. But if they're 21, 28 dry age, I would say nutty is a good term, Chris.
Yeah, definitely nutty is probably the first step in that dry aging.
Right. It's going to hit you in the face, right? And it's also going to help as it dehydrates a little. It's going to break down that sinew between the muscle mass, and it's going to keep making it a little bit more tender. I'm not a fan of dry aging for me personally. There's nothing wrong with it. But so many restaurants I've been into that have dry aging boxes. The difference between aging meat and rotting meat. Peter Luger's in New York City. Most of the time, if you go on Google and go, what's the greatest steakhouse in the United States? Peter Luger's in Brooklyn comes up. Every great restaurant that serves steak as their main thing has their steak story. Ours has a multiple side. We're going to be telling our story, and you're going to get it over and over. It's 5 styles of beef. That's our story. It's 100% prime. That's a big part of our steak story. A steakhouse without a steak story, don't bother going to there. You're not going to get a good steak. Uh, I don't like the nuttiness of dry aging. Keto Luger's is a very old restaurant. They invented a thing called the gravity coil to properly age a steak. You can't use traditional refrigeration that has blowers because that air motion will burn the exterior of the meat and it'll go in sometimes an eighth of an inch, a quarter of an inch. You'll just wind up with this rotted core on the outside or dehydrated, almost like beef jerky. Gravity coils don't use blowers and they can maintain the temperature in a box or a room. I used to work with Desert Meats. They used to dry age for us. We'd go, the chef and I would go, we'd pick all of our short loins and we'd give it, I'm sorry, our ribs, because we used to do a dry aged ribeye. And then they would age them 28 days in their facility for us. We had a rack with the name of our restaurant. And every rack had a big restaurant in Las Vegas on it. And it was a huge room with gravity coils and everything. It's a multi-million-dollar refrigerator. It aged beef perfectly. So we're going to buy our dry aged. We're not going to bring it in. I'm not saying every restaurant does a bad job dry aging. A lot do. I'd rather leave the aging process to the professionals that have the correct equipment to do it. So we're going to bring it in. I'm a wet aged fan. That term has, this is my 5th decade in the restaurant industry. Wet aging, dry age and wet age didn't even really exist. Nobody used those terms in the 70s. Probably got big in the 90s, Chris, would you say, is when people started focusing on those styles of serving beef and aging it. And
Yeah,
only
I think Fleming's was the first one I ever heard really talk about wet aging, or they're the one that really
wet
put it out
aging,
there.
wet aging, that term is pretty new in the sense of culinary history, right?
Mhm.
And they wet age mostly, it's already cryovac. They leave it sealed, 21-day wet age. It helps intensify flavor, but it doesn't change the flavor profile like dry aging. It helps break down the sinew a little bit, but not as drastically as dry aging it. It's kind of a gentler method, really changing the profile too much. It's not going to taste very different than something that wasn't aged at all, but it will be a little bit more tender and just a little bit more flavorful. Would you say that's a good description, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, and it saves a little weight, and I think people understand that that style a little bit more of that flavor profile.
So the big takeaway for steaks, we're doing 5 styles. We're going to have to say this. We should say this every day, and you guys need to memorize. At Mae Daly's, first and foremost, we only serve 100% prime beef. Nothing will ever be accepted through our doors except 100% prime beef. Not many steakhouses can say that and be honest. Some say it and aren't honest. There are some that actually do it. T-Bone's Red Rock, the only one I know of in the city that does. I won't tell you the ones that hang themselves out as serving 100% prime though, but there's a lot of them. We're going to stand behind that. It's going to cost us more money. It's going to cost us, our customers, more money. But we're going to give them experience eating a steak that they've never had. They're never going to forget it. I guarantee you. Guarantee you they won't forget our steaks. We will serve wet aged and dry aged steaks. So that's 2 styles, right? All prime. Everything's prime. That's the grade, right? That's a given. Now we have traditional steaks, either wet or dry aged. And there's 2 flavor profiles going on there, right? With the dry aging, will probably be 28-day dry aged, which is kind of mild compared to what Chris is talking about. Some steakhouses go long and longer, right? I think a 21 to a 28-day dry age, you're getting enough nuttiness and changing the profile enough that people that love dry aged beef are happy. Then we have our Piedmontese, our 100% grass-fed style beef, right? So that is prime. That is probably neither wet aged nor dry aged. right? Because they're not messing with an organic steak like that in any fashion. It's just, it's more, when you talk about the Piedmontese, it's more about the lowest fat content of any of the steaks on the menu. It's more about it naturally grazed 100% of its life. It's more about it as a very low fat content. It is guaranteed organic free, hormone free, the cleanest possible way a steak could be raised, right? In the most natural environment. That's the third style of beef. Wagyu. Everybody's heard of Wagyu?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Think. Angelina, did I ask you anything today?
I don't think so.
Okay. Do you know what Wagyu beef is?
Yeah.
Enlighten us.
Wagyu beef is supposed to be known as one of the best beef, especially like the Japanese, like A5 Wagyu.
So what's
I'm
A5 mean?
um I don't remember right off the top of my head.
Okay. Keep going.
I know that it's supposed to be renowned because it has like really good marbling and it's supposed to be really tender and rich.
Yep. Yeah, no, you're wrong. You're doing great. So we're going to do two styles of Wagyu. Wagyu beef is a specific DNA. It's raised in a specific way. The animals are treated in a specific way. They give them rubs. They pamper these animals. Chris, feed. Am I wrong? Sometimes there's alcoholic beverages involved in the feeding process.
That's a little more traditional to Kobe. That's sort of how they did it. They massaged the Wagyu cattle. They fed it soy. They fed it beer. It got a massage. It was a pretty good life up till the slaughter. Uh, but that's sort of where Wagyu gained its fashion, was from the Kobe region of Japan.
Yeah. Okay. If we'll show you, you're going to taste Wagyu. A5 is a rating level. It's the highest quality. There's also, we're going to, right now I have on the menu a new product that's coming from Japan through Chicago to us in Las Vegas called Japanese A5 Wagyu Snow Aged, which is, they've changed the process of aging it a little bit. It's supposed to be fantastic. I can get it in small cubes, which I want because it's extremely expensive. You're talking about a steak that you're going to charge $60 to $100 an ounce for. People are very curious about it, but not many people want to spend $600 to $1,200 on a steak like me. I'm not doing it. So we have some kind
Charged
of
by the ounce.
You have to charge by the ounce. So, but I know, like I say, we want to create experiences for people. So I'm trying to figure out a way we're going to serve an appetizer that you can do it by the person, maybe at $40 a person or something, and you have like a satay or something. Maybe we have a little barbecue on the table for them so that, we can have viscose it, but they can get a nice bite and taste of Wagyu without spending hundreds of dollars. I think a lot of people would do that. It's a great way to upsell your check without killing them, because now they don't have to spend $600 to try Wagyu, right? Or $300. And so, we'll get into it. It might change. Right now, that's what's on the menu. Maybe Chef Thomas has a different idea. My research, I thought that was the most new, interesting product out of Japan to go on the market. Japanese A5, it's as white as it is red. There's so much fat marbling that at least 50% of the weight of the animal is fat of that muscle. It's very strange looking. It's not for everybody. It's not for me. It's way too high of a fat content for me. Some people want to bathe in it. Everybody's different. And then they took that DNA in that strand, and they brought it to America, Australia, other places, the style of raising the cattle. So now there's Australian Wagyu and American Wagyu. And what Chef Thomas was walking around with was an American Wagyu, I believe. And especially as you got to the two ends of that steak, you could see it was at least 50% fat there. They are wonderful steaks. They're more my style because that fat content isn't insane, but it is pretty high. What's the top fat content rating? I know the snow age that I'm looking at is not the snow age. I think the Piedmontese was high, low, but the snow age was like 7 or something. You know the top of the scale there, Chris?
I think it's 7.
Oh, all right. So
Great.
yeah, there's a fat content rating. So the 8.5 has got to be the highest fat content. It's got to be the best of everything, right?
And
So
the fat content is totally correlated to how much of the grain they feed.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit because I got a cattle rancher background. It's extremely expensive to finish these large animals on just grain or raise them on total grain. It's
Yeah.
almost every cattle's grazed or grass fed up until a finishing point. But Kobe, they're grain fed or Wagyu, they're grain fed the whole time. That's why it's expensive.
All right. So just to recap, everything is prime. We serve 5 styles of beef: wet aged, dry aged, American Wagyu or Australian Wagyu. Right now it's American. Japanese A5 Wagyu, and 100% grass fed beef. So that's our story. It's 2 parts. Most importantly, we'll never serve anything that's not rated prime beef. The finest beef in the world, that's what we're going to serve. And we're serving it in 5 different styles. And then when we get into training and you see the menu, we'll get into which cuts are coming in which styles, right? There's 2 ribeyes, one with a bone, one without. One's dry aged, one's wet aged. I think I don't remember off the top of my head, there might be 2 sirloin steaks. Because remember, we only have a few cuts, but we can get them in different styles, right? We can get that cut in wet age, we can get it in dry age, we can get it in Wagyu, we get it in A5. So that's where the blend comes. We have a 4-page menu. Not that it's a big menu. It's a larger font. It's on white paper with black ink. It's a simple font. It's easy to read. We have fantastic table lamps. You don't need a flashlight in your pocket to come to work and hold it over the menu for people so they can read the menu. You'll be able to sit at our tables and read the menu. It's very easy on the eyes. That's how we designed the layout, to be easy to read. I hate customers that pull out their phones and are shining the flashlight to try to read the little type on the menu in a dark room. It's like, that's not customer service to me. So spent a long time finding a light on the table that would keep our mood in the dining room look beautiful, but give enough light to the table so you can see your food, you can read your menu, picking a font that was easy to read, and a format that was a little bit larger than everybody else uses, so it's very easy on the eyes. That's how we designed it, not to look so fancy that you can't read it. And that's where we're going to end this at. Any other questions? Who's going to give us work? Who's going to go ahead? Go.
The handhelds that we're going to, are they going to be as easy to read and see as well?
I have no idea. I haven't seen them.
Oh, okay.
You're going to let me know, though.
I will let you know. Yes.
I have a question for Chris.
I will tell you that size is pretty standard on the handheld devices. There's only a few out on the market, and all the companies use the same.
Well, hopefully it has a nice backlight to help us see.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sabotage you.
You're right.
That wouldn't help me.
Right.
So I researched the Clover company. They have 7% of the world's market. So they're not one of the larger ones, but by far, they have millions of customers. It's a major company. There's lots and lots of POS companies. I made sure that I picked one It had good reviews. That was widely used. This one's used internationally. So I'm sure you'll be able to do it. People wouldn't buy a product they can't. So I did do a lot of research on it.
Good to know.
I have a question for Chris. When you said pass the wine introduction course, is that something that's like already available, or is that something that you create? And is there a way to prepare for that now?
Well, I mean, it's something I've created, and a lot of us guys in the Court of Master Sommeliers, part of what we do. And
Hold on, Chris, let me back up because you're assuming a whole lot here. These people so there's an organization called the Court of Master Sommeliers, and Chris is on part of that. And they set there's 3 levels, Chris. Take it from there. So
4 now.
It's 4 levels. All right. So take it from there because Chris is on. These are the people in the world, Chris, and these other people who decide who's smart and who's not when it comes to the wine world.
So, I mean, part of what we do is, and people did it to me, and I feel responsible, is we mentor people with wine, to teach them wine and beverage knowledge, especially in this industry, to better themselves and either pick up the ball and run with it, or just have the knowledge to be a more professional server in a restaurant. I mean, and make more money. It does relate to making more money if you're and what I'll do is, well, I'm always a big person about continuing education. So we're always learning, always going forward. And if you want, to make sure that you're ready to take this test, in the future, if it's, one of I take as a big feather in my cap is when other places want to come poach my employees. That means you've done a good job. So, we'll teach you and get you ready for it, and you get to wear a nice little pin. And it's, a certification in this industry, just like being a master chef or a pastry chef, but it's when it comes to wine. And they have it for different fields in this industry. The bar business has one called Smart Bar or uh, master mixologist, if you want to call them. But it's a fun journey, and if you're going to be in this industry, it'll benefit you greatly.
Southern Wine and Spirits here in town has a school. I sent Jason to it. He went to their wine class. Denise, when she started working for me, she was a server and then a captain. To be a captain in my restaurants out here, the first tier of the Court of Master Sommeliers is certified level, correct, Chris? Is it still called certified?
Yes, it is. Oh, no, basic, certified, advanced, and then master.
Oh, so the basic is what was added?
The certified was bounced in the middle. They just switched the words around and created another tier.
Okay, well, I know when with my guys, it was certified back then. So I don't know what they were 20 years ago, but you had 1 year. If I made you a captain, you had 1 year to get certified. If you didn't, you got bounced back to being a server. Captains made a lot more money. You wanted the job. You had to agree to reaching that level of wine education. And so Denise is a certified, well, I don't know what you would call it now, basically certified, but Denise earned her, she didn't want to give up that captain money, so she earned her. I'm not forcing you guys to do anything now. But, we were on a different mission there. Like I said, we had 6,000 selections of wine. Everybody had to have massive wine knowledge to work in that restaurant. This is easy. This is 100-bottle list. You can be intimate with 100 wines easily in your life. You can't be intimate with 6,000 wines very easily. I don't want you guys to get scared. We'll encourage you. We'll teach you, but we're not going to put demands on. But I will tell you, the more you learn about wine, the more money you're definitely going to make at your tables. That's for sure. That's proven time and time again. A lot of money in wine. Who's upside down, Tommy?
I mean, yeah. How many people eat 2 steaks, but they'll drink 2 bottles of wine?
Exactly, right? Especially if somebody's drinking $300 bottles of wine, you just put $60, $70 more on your tip. how much harder did you work for? That's a lot of extra money. A lot of extra money. Good for me, good for you, right? Anybody else? Who's giving us the words of wisdom here at the end? Trina, you want to give us one words of wisdom?
I'm sorry, words of wisdom?
Yeah, give us something to make it be better today. I always like
No, it's a little early for me, Richard. My brain isn't like totally there yet.
see, I I feel I can learn from all you guys. I like to learn something every day. Who wants to give us some words of wisdom? Make my life better.
Okay, I got it. I mean, and again, like we steal from other people. This is, I work for Michael Mina, and his phrase is a Asian phrase called Kaizen. If you're not getting better, every day somebody else is.
I like that. I like that. That's a good one. Kaiser?
Kaizen, yeah.
Kaizen. With I-N at the end? Kaizen?
Yes.
I like that. I got to get better than Tommy. I've been trying for 20 years. It's tough. All right, guys, thank you. But Craig, Chris, call my cell. I need to talk to you guys. All right.
Got it.
Thank you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, one
right.
more thing. I gotta make sure I know who's here. Gotta pay you guys. Hold on. I'm sorry. Just gotta take. Let me just open up my payroll log. So I don't have the payroll clock going yet. So I need to log you guys so I pay you correctly, right? Where are we now? So it's 1 o'clock. Then 2.5 hours. Chop chop. It's Thursday, so let's go. Tomas was not here. Vanessa was here. Olivia's not here. She's night. Taylor's night. Kai is here.
Actually here today in the morning.
Is that Olivia?
Yeah. It's Olivia.
Sounds so upbeat. I'm actually here today in the morning.
It's Olivia, and is gonna come later tonight. But I also did want to let you know that I need my last name fixed still, so I didn't want to like.
It's fixed. I fixed it.
Okay, sweet. Thank you.
YB.
Yes.
Trina's here, right?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Orion's at night. Christine's here now. Did I do okay, Christine? Guess not. Melissa?
I'm here.
I thought so. Old, I don't remember things. Angelina's here, right?
Yep, here.
Samira is here. Bill Craig and Tommy is here. That's everybody, right? I didn't miss anybody?
I don't know. I couldn't hear you. Did you get me, Rich?
Yeah, I just have you
Okay.
for a week. Yeah, I have you. All right, so Craig and Chris, give me a buzz, and we gotta rally. I gotta change my day up here. All right. Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank
you.
you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
There it is. Stop sharing.